My name is Eric Kimondo, and kindly help me to specially welcome Mr. Simon Kamau from Otipro Limited. And he's here together with us to take us through the role of culture in enterprise success. Karibu sana sir.
Thank you very much, Eric.
How are you doing?
Very well.
Mm-hmm.
I thank God
Mm-hmm.
for the peace and also to be back here. It's a blessing.
Wow.
Yes.
We thank God even for you and seeing you once again here on PrayerCave TV.
Yes.
Last time you took us through succession
Planning.
and
Yes.
it was wonderful. Remember you told us it is between the age of 0 and 13.
Yeah. Besides, beyond that, you lose the child.
That statement stuck with my mind.
Ikipita hapo ameenda.
0 to 13.
Yeah, atarudi akiwa 22.
Wow. You're here to take us through now the role of culture in enterprise success.
Yes.
Briefly, take us through the introduction of this. Karibu.
Thank you very much, Eric. Once again, we thank God for the gift of life. And again for the opportunity to be in here. I mean, when you look at culture, more often culture is defined loosely as a way of doing things. You know, this is how we do things. Okay. And of course, if you look at it from creation, of course, as much as people will want to perceive it or break it down, just like a norm or how you come out and execute a certain responsibility, be it professionally or even socially. I think we need to correct that it's not just the way. It's not a one-off, and neither is it an event. It's an organized way of doing things. You know, you wouldn't hardly wake up today and all of a sudden you pick a certain behavior or habit, you know, and start now running either your own job or your own responsibilities without any foundation or without any roots or thought process, you know. So we need to appreciate that culture, both socially and even at corporate level, spreading even through to religion, is structured and has foundations, and there are facets that now drives our way of now structurally and convectionally running our day-to-day activities. So every time we sit here, we have always reminded our viewers and listeners, we do not address a conversation from a perspective of formal and not informal. The economy is driven both by informal and the formal sectors. And the informal sectors actually are the biggest contributors to the revenues in terms of now the economic of the day. So the conversation we are having here needs to speak to both who are in the formal and those who are in the informal sectors. But then first thing first, if you look at culture in corporates, it is as much as we are saying it's organized, that means it's documented. So the documentation of culture will take place through a strategic framework. Okay, and the strategic framework here is that direction or that purpose, which is long-term and contains what is meaningful from the setting up of that enterprise or from the setting up of that business, both in the formal and in the informal space. So as we define culture, we are going to look at culture in an organization setup and how strategy comes in and embeds itself into culture. Then we'll also look into what is the role of emotional intelligence, the confidence, and of course the people routines towards the creation of an effective culture within an organization. So if we now go back to where you had started, for us to define what culture is, culture has 4 facets from an organizational setup, and the 4 facets can actually again be reflected within the informal sectors, because they both apply seamlessly, and they are all uniform. So if you look at it now from an organization setup, you need to appreciate that an organization will have a governing principle or a governing body. So if I pick an example of PrayerCave TV, the vision is to spread the gospel to the end of the world. That is actually the vision. So from that particular vision, we'll come in and draw the direction, because the purpose is already brought up at that at the principal level, or at that stage. We can now see Prayer Cave in terms of the direction and the purpose. But then when you look at now the organizations, every organization, formal or informal, will be set up from a different perspective based on the industry or the trade they are involved in. So the direction and purpose again will come in and vary, but at any given time, at the principal level, we still need to see an organization in terms of a vision or a purpose that gives now the direction. Of course, now if you move now and scale downward, that direction or purpose needs to be held. It's a baby which we are now trying to bring up or grow, so that that baby grows up to become what we had envisaged at the vision stage. So in this case is when we come up and put up the structures. The structures will onboard the organization in form of leadership. Leadership from either senior, mid-level, and low level. So much of the activities which takes place in here is purely communication and collaboration. And when you have the right communication and collaboration through a mindset that speaks to the direction and purpose at the principal level, then you're in a position now to start breaking down that particular organization or enterprise in its meaningful goals, in form of how we need now to execute and run our responsibilities in teams, in groups. And this way is cascaded now from departments, divisions, and all of them will actually have again to go back and speak to that direction and purpose. And of course, at that stage, we need to appreciate, as much as PrayerCave TV exists in terms of vision to spread the gospel to the corners of the earth, there are some of the enterprises which will exist for a profit. There are some which will exist for an impact. There are some which will exist really looking at it from a perspective of how you can touch people's life, considering their various spaces and status in life. And that itself now becomes our unity of purpose. So it varies from an objective, or rather from a vision point of view. But how we come in and achieve or keep that unity of purpose as defined, we'll now pick it from our own routines. The routines is these are the habits that we every day that every day guides us on how to go about a certain activity, a certain responsibility, or a certain process. You will want to really also get to appreciate that for you to establish or tell that you actually gain drawing value at the unity of purpose, how often do we come in and review how we are performing? How do we keep on upskilling our teams at the structure level? Remember, we spoke about the structure, which comes in and now holds to drive that particular direction and purpose. How do we train these people? How do we come in and now culture the mindset of these people to at any given time reason and drive the organization in the rightful way? So if you are to now summarize from the definition of a culture, we are saying we have the governing principle or body. That's the direction and mission. We have now the structure, the organization structure, which speaks now to really the collaboration, the communication, the setting up of various teams and departments and units, the systems which have to come in and facilitate us to operate seamlessly, the controls within an organization, how we come in and report, the hierarchy of reporting and command, the leadership, etc., etc. Then if you now go back to stage 3, we're asking ourselves, what is our unity of purpose? Why do we really exist or function at any given time? Is it profit? Is it impact? Then at the number 4 on our retreats, how do we come in and measure and also get to evaluate whether we actually achieving our own direction and purpose through those laid down structures, through activities such as monitoring and evaluation, the training, upskilling, etc., etc. Yes. So briefly, that will define culture. But then the holding or the interpretation of culture in an organization setup will now be through a strategy. Okay. Your organization strategy is what will come in and tell us really why do you exist in the first place. You know, it will speak to your own goals, your own objectives, your own strategies, and of course the tactics that you at any given time get to operate under to achieve a certain mandate. So more often again, if you are to figure it up from a strategic point of view, there is always a misconception in that every time you speak about a strategy, it comes in as a very big, you know,
complex,
hard, you know, it's like rockets, you know, and most people are discouraged because strategy, as much as it exists either in an enterprise or a business, even at personal level, we also need to be structured in a strategic manner, in that we know where we are starting and where we really need to stop. So if you look at strategy now, as we break it down, you would appreciate that there are foundations. And a strategy has only 2 foundations, Eric. At any given time, you are either thinking or you are doing. So if we pick strategy and map it to where we had, how we had defined culture, one of the facets from now the 2 components is purely now the mindset. If I was to map the mindset, now from our cultural breakdown, by the time you sit and strategically think that this is the direction and purpose that we are going to undertake, we are speaking a lot of time spent in creativity, in innovation, in trying to validate whether this particular purpose or direction is right. So our first point of focus, our first point of making up of a strategy will be now at the strategic thinking stage. The strategic thinking stage is purely the mindset. If it does not get created and formed and patented in our own mindset, Eric, there is no way you're going to place it on this table. So it has to start there. So a lot of activities and a lot of collaborations will take place at this particular stage when you look at it now from the mindset perspective. Of course, from now, the mindset is what speaks now to the strategic thinking. There is now the designing, the strategic designing and formulation. This is what now draws the focus. purely when you come in and ask yourself what direction and how determined I am to come in and pursue a certain objective or goal. You know, so it brings you now to a lane that you purely want to maintain and stick towards now pursuing a certain objective or goal. So if you combine the mindset and focus, that is purely the thinking stage. And as I had mentioned, we only have two facets: the thinking and doing. From now, the plan you through with now the thinking, the formulation and designing. You now shift and get to now the planning. This is where you now start putting all the requisite processes, all the requisite requirements. You come up with frameworks. You come up with mechanism as to how now that has already been formulated and designed needs to start rolling out. So you are giving it a kind of prototype, and you're seeing it now in terms of actualization or running. So the planning stage, the strategic planning stage, is purely the process stage. And of course, now from now, you trying to prototype it, you'll want it to stop at the strategic execution and implementation. And purely here you are assigning roles. Who is responsible for what? What norms? What habits? So if you combine the process plus the habits, they'll give you the doing. Okay? So if you look at culture now defined in terms of an organized framework and how it will come in and fit itself in a strategic framework. At the organizational routines, you actually now with the habits, which you have picked as stage 4 in terms of implementation and execution. At the process level, you have now the organization structure, where you have the leadership, the teams, the structure, the systems, etc., trying to come in and push or drive an organization in terms of goal and objectives. Of course, at the formulation and designing stage, you now have the focus in terms of where exactly you guys want to go. And that focus, if you go back to our definition of the culture, we now come and marry our unity of purpose in this particular stage. And at the vision board, you now come in and on board the mindset, because it's supposed to speak and place itself in a state, or rather in a factor that is likely to run and drive value in an organization. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. For an entrepreneur who is listening to you this wonderful morning, or somebody, because when it comes to strategy and organization, it is across board.
Yes.
And just what you said, they think it is difficult.
It is cumbersome.
Cumbersome.
It is not achievable.
Yes, and often most times we do things without it. Yet we see it is integral, as it is the foundation of the organization.
Yes.
How can you simplify this process of strategy creation for an entrepreneur that is then going to yield culture?
You know, more often, Eric, there are always the principles which will make this conversation very difficult. The reality is, if you are to run a survey, if you are to run a survey as PrayerCave, you will pick very interesting conversation in terms of feedback. When you want to ask our wonderful entrepreneurs and business people whether they have a strategy, all of them will tell you they have. All of them will tell you they have in mind. Okay. And even those who have it now written down, there are 4 mistakes which they have always committed. The mistake number 1 is that you don't inform. You don't inform the relevant stakeholders. And we have always sat here, and even my colleague had broken it down, that when you look at an organization at collaborative stage, we will always function and operate to draw value not on ourselves, but as a team. So when you look at it now from the stakeholder mapping point of view, an enterprise will exist where you have people, in this case are your own employees. You will have the board, you will have the customers, you have the suppliers, you have the community, you have the interested parties, and even the general public. You will never assume anybody
Sure.
nowadays, you know. So what the biggest blunder which happens at this stage, Eric, you don't inform your stakeholders, okay? You just assume you carry everything within your own self, okay? You don't involve them. So you sit and draw a document in the name of strategy, which whereby they have not been involved, and you expect them to come and run this particular process. Okay, you don't. Now in leadership, everything is all about influence. It's how best or how fast you can come and influence people to swing into your own direction, so long as it's meaningful and purposeful. So these people are not inspired to reason and figure out why we need a strategy as an organization. Okay? Then, as you inspire them, you must pursue them to develop passion or to develop interest. You see? So, no involvement, no information. They are not inspired. They are not even made to be interested. So, how do you start that particular process? So, you can see those are immediate bottlenecks and some of the biggest mistakes and blunders that we make as an organization. But then going back to what you had asked, immediate, and this is what my colleagues has always said, once you get to crack on a mission or vision, everything else falls in place. Because why and how is all that we need from an organization. But then what is it that happens? We are blindly starting off enterprises or businesses without going through a thought process, Eric. And I've said it several times. The reason why you see ourselves really as an economy struggling, and it's becoming almost now a daily thing, is the fact that we are fond of competing. Okay? So simply because I want to come and have a media station, and I can see Eric is well dressed, I think he's doing very well. You know, I also want to figure out I can also come in and also take up and even exceed what Eric is, where Eric is. So we are fond of more of competing. But the people who are now successful, the economies which are successful, they are collaborating.
Wow.
So you'll find Eric has like, within the media industry, there are like 50 of them. But nobody will come in and ape or copy the other. They will sit and reason and agree in terms of why we exist for, is to inform, to educate, and entertain. You know, so how can we really get to achieve this particular goal? So to get it, to now sum it up from where you're coming from, it's only fair if we really have to see this business hit to the generation 4. As I have always said, and that's also the law of God. It is always fair and relevant that we first agree to think through a process and give it the due and adequate time, other than we just jumping in, competing. Then as you move along, you have no direction, you have no purpose, because you missed your own space or tagline at the vision and the mission stage. Yes.
Would you say if it is not written, it does not exist?
Apparently, yes. those days, there are those days, Eric, where it was purely between me and you. We have a covenant, and that covenant will not be breached, because that's the way we are supposed to interact and operate with each other. But as it stands now, you can see how the world has evolved, the dynamics. And today you wake up, the following day you are exposed into a technological advancement, which you wouldn't imagine. So one of the developments which have taken place today is that in technology space, you can see now we have a portable kit that you can actually move along with it. It does not recognize that we do not have internet access. You only need to have it because it's satellite run. So if you fail now to sit and document how you need to move or pursue a certain course, then when it comes now to monitoring and evaluation at the review stage, how do you get to test and tell that indeed these are the improvement areas, these are the leakages, and this is how we can move from this point to the next phase. So it's good we document these things. And that's why we exist differently. Entrepreneurs who are founders, they're not good in documentation. They don't. They want it here, and it starts working. But then when we get now to the 4 mistakes that we had mentioned, how then do you inform these people? Because you will imagine, Eric, I have to keep on booking appointments or meetings with you to understand your mind. What if you sat and documented it, and all of us as PrayerCave media team can obviously go back and refer and see how best we can pursue or even suggest improvements. So those errors are really do not exist anymore. They have been overtaken by time and of course the evolvement in terms of technology. So it's only fair when we come in and document this conversation, and it will also come back. Even the Bible is documented. The Constitution is documented. We really have to have a conventional way of running and transacting at every stage. Yes.
So this is when it comes to strategy, it's not something you can jump over.
No.
You have to do it. Good thing you've given us the Mwakenya. If you figure out the vision and the mission, you are good to go.
Yes.
Grab that piece of paper, try to define what is your organization vision, what is your organization mission, and then start now writing the other kind of things they are going to come through.
Yes.
But because our conversation today is about culture, let us get into it. What routines create success in entrepreneurship now that we have the strategy?
No, thank you. I noted you have indicated the week has been busy. And also tall all together in terms of the activities. We had mentioned routines across either at habit, that is as a strategy level, and at culture breakdown, we had also mentioned routine in terms of what we do regularly. We also get to inform us. So if you look at Eric as a component of culture, at a personal level and at the formal or informal, or within that productive space, you expect Eric will at least demonstrate about 7 routines. Number 1, you need to make it a habit or a norm that 10 to 20 minutes of your time when you wind up the day, you're doing stock taking. You're taking stock on how your day has been, the success that came along during that particular day, the areas that you really did not do very well, and also the improvements that can come along. So you've already packaged how your day has been like, even without necessarily having to have moved to figure out how tomorrow is. So once you have now the stock of how that particular day has been, expressing gratitude, Eric, is very important. Every time we sit, we say we give thanks always. So you don't express gratitude because the day went as you had planned,
Yeah.
or the day went as you had really envisaged. You will have your own plans for that day, but in one way or the other, they will not take shape or direction that you had envisaged. So what really happens? You really have to also sit down and recollect yourself and really appreciate there is always another time to get to achieve how the day's objectives were.
Yeah.
So now from the stock take to now the gratitude, it's important now you sit and plan for your day, the following day now. So you're coming back from where you started, and you're realizing from what I had envisaged to achieve, ABCD did not go as I had intended, but then this is how I can always work around and achieve this goal and achieve my own plans for tomorrow. Now at stage 4, now you can start to plan for your sleep. Because rest is very important for human brains and our own productivity. So the routines which I'm really finding very common is that the only way that we are preparing for our sleep is you bored, you pick the phone and you start scrolling, or you find yourself picking your laptop and running a lot of activities all together. Scrolling your own phone and running several activities all together will not prepare your mind for rest. You're feeding your own self with a lot of anxiety and a lot of pressure that is unnecessary, because as you tag along so many activities, you still now adding salt to injury if you had not really achieved your day very well. And of course, number 5 is now you go back and look at your own goals. Now you look into your own strategy. We had said at personal, at corporate level, you must have a strategy. So you're now evaluating how your goals have been like. You know, what is it that I really would have done by September? You've told me this year has moved very fast.
Yes, very.
Allow me to keep on using the example. So at this particular stage, you're asking yourself, what were my goals for this year? Every day, that becomes a routine. What have I achieved? What can I do best? Where did I really plan wrongly? And who can come in and assist? So you start mapping even people who will come in and now help you to think it right. Number 6, the biggest command is that of forgiveness. You must forgive to be forgiven. So start by forgiving yourself. That yes, this day has been, this is how the outlook of the day has been like. I think I have not really been spot on in one areas of the other. So how do you forgive it? Start by forgiving yourself. Accept you are human. It is allowed and accommodated sometimes to really not be upright and do things in a manner that is not really very appropriate. And see yourself as a being which can also get to do things right. Number 7, you need to figure out death. You need to figure out, reflect about death. This moment we live this moment. The next moment we have it with God. So ask yourself whether whatever you did and achieved and whatever you did not achieve and the blunders and messes, if you are to go, how much have you achieved? And what is it that you will have done better? So at personal level, we really need to onboard our own minds in a manner that every day has their own routines. And these routines will help you to evaluate yourself socially. It will help you evaluate yourself in terms of now of your own profession. And you will also have to come in and ask yourself in terms of empathy, where is it that you could be going extreme and overboard.
Okay, what is the role of confidence in entrepreneurship, and what does emotional intelligence count in entrepreneurship? Karibu.
Thank you, Eric. You've made a very important statement that most of the organizations, as much as they exist, they do not exist in an organized platform. That means we are making a lot of blind decisions to start off businesses without necessarily resolving to kind of incubate through planning and coming up with a strategy that will guide us mid-term and long-term. So to our viewers and listeners, at personal and professional level, in corporate and personal life, we need to embrace the fact that we must be planned, we must be organized, so that our lives moves seamless.
Wow.
So if you look at a strategy in the form of a demonstration, you would imagine when you're driving a vehicle which do not have a dashboard. A dashboard is what becomes your control pit, looking at the vehicle in terms of fuel levels, temperatures, punctures, you know, any indicator that something is wrong with the vehicle is in the dashboard. So any indicator to assure you that you can travel from here to Nanyuki without necessarily getting stressed or overwhelmed is when you have that vehicle well planned, ready for the safari, and you're in a position to move. That journey becomes smooth, and you will be sure you will arrive to your destination right. But don't just wake up and imagine you want to drive from here to Arusha with a vehicle that you last used 3 years ago. You will expect some trouble or problems along the way. So let us kindly go back to the drawing board and start seeing ourselves as visionary and as organized in terms of our own mission. So that is very important. So when you come back now to what you've just indicated on confidence and emotional intelligence, let's start it now from the emotional intelligence perspective. Just to invert the conversation, because at one point we said the 4 blunders will be tied on the involving, the informing, the involving, the inspiring, and pushing now the trust. That is expected to come from a leader, because a leader is the one now who has the responsibility to develop that particular strategy, and the strategy will only become a reality when people who are the biggest resource in an organization are moved within that particular journey, all the way now to them buying trust. But how would you expect a leader to be defined? You need, if you look at emotional intelligence or emotional quotation, these are actually the superpowers. When you are making, when you moved us into the sermon and you are praying, you prayed for people who are going through a rough time in life, difficult moments in their own life. So when you link that to the emotional intelligence, it's the supernatural power in you that you're in a position to see that non-verbal communication coming from people. So the ability of you to understand, to manage and use your own emotions to navigate through, to influence on leadership, conflict management, to inspire people, to involve people, and always retain calm, even when there is chaos and commotion, and manage your own anger. That is what we define as emotional intelligence. But more often, we are picking leadership as a center and a central point of anger. You know?
Naitwa makasiriko.
You know, as a central point of anger, wrath, you know, a lot of grudges, vengeance, revenge, you know. Utanijua. Na saa hiyo unataka tutengeneze strategy. Sasa Eric, tutatengeneza aje? Na mimi najua mdosi wangu ameniambia utanijua. You know. You know. So when you have a leadership, and that's an interesting conversation really, because other than you coming out as somebody who can influence people to move to achieve that unity of purpose and create routines that consistently evaluates and analyzes how the business is doing, you have placed them in a state of oblivion, anxiety, trouble in mind. So when you look at the opposite of what emotional intelligence is, the impact is now shifts to mental health and wellness.
Wow.
Because you have caused terror, you have instilled fear
in the organization.
You're very destructive. So if you are saying at the mindset stage, when we are defining a strategy in culture, there is a lot of creativity and innovation. How do I function when I'm mentally disturbed? Courtesy of my own leader. You understand? So emotional intelligence is critical, because your ability to understand that team, and it does not necessarily mean in the workplace, even socially as a person, and even at family setup, etc., etc. That ability of you to understand your own makeup, or is largely called by my colleague the self-awareness, really will push you to create, to manage relationships, to create those social networks, you know, a lot of connections. You really operate by way of coming out as somebody who is a leader in terms of service. So you're a servant leadership. So people no longer see you as someone who cannot really reason or listen, even when I don't have to necessarily talk.
I see.
So when you have it right at that stage, you'd realize now in terms of leadership, that strategy and culture will be embedded in foundations of excellence and success. Because the outcome will be, in terms of now empathy, you achieve and score highly because you relate and interact highly with the people.
Just to ask, this is for somebody that is struggling with emotional intelligence.
Yes.
Can it be developed? How do you get emotional intelligence?
True. As you've rightly put it, emotional intelligence can be developed. But the immediate and the only option is to actually participate and take place in a self-awareness. You know, in a self-awareness process. Because until you get to discover your own selves and know what really your personality is, and what strengths you carry, and what weaknesses you have with you, then honestly speaking, you will never get even to realize when you are moving the opposite, yet you are supposed to be pursuing a certain direction. So scientifically, or largely known techniques, if you look at, for example, the radical Kanda, this is one of the tools that will come out and bring you out in terms of who you are, what your personalities are, and how that personality impacts on an organization positively or negatively. And that is the only roadblock or barrier to your success, Eric, is your own personality. You can be anything in this world. But if you don't get to discover and know yourself and know this is how strong I am, these are my weaknesses, and you start putting up habits which are converted into norms to now start converting those weaknesses into strengths, then there will be a problem in terms of leadership. Yes.
And it is there. Statistically, most people are saying workplaces are stressful from a leadership level. And but just for as a HR practitioner, this one, for such kind of an employee who is suffering, what would you tell them?
To me, I want to challenge the leadership. One of the conversation which has been ongoing locally is when we have seen leaders come out to rush at Kenyans it's
Yeah.
kind of celebrating
Mm-hmm.
the struggles
Mm-hmm.
and the stress and the hardship people are going through.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a leader.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So it all starts from a leader.
Okay.
Once a leader gets self-aware,
Mm-hmm.
we will also get to pick
Mm-hmm.
the weaknesses of their teams and
Okay.
subordinates, and they will also walk them, or they will influence them
Mm-hmm.
to also undertake that awareness process, to discover. Then cumulatively as a team, they will start figuring out your own weaknesses and my own strengths. How do we collaborate? Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow, such an amazing lesson that we have had today. Strategy development is inevitable.
Yes.
And I think, thank you so much. You've brought out something that I have caught up, that it is both on a personal level and corporate.
Yes.
So even the same principles need to drive you as a person.
Yes. True.
Wow,
Yes.
amazing. Talk to us about Otipro and what you do, especially in training leaders.
Yes.
Especially you umesema ya mwisho hapo self awareness.
No, thank you very much.
Karibu.
OptiPro exists purely to work and partner with organizations on their own operational efficiency and sustainability at growth perspective. And when you look at it now from an awareness point of view, really we have that capacity and capability to come in and walk you through a self-awareness journey and package that outcome in terms of impact, either at personal level or even now your productive life.
Wow.
Yes.
Phone number
0725 090 430.
again.
0725 090 430.
Wow. And Otipro Limited kwa social media?
So we are in Facebook, we are in LinkedIn, we are on YouTube. Yes, we are all available in all those spaces.
Asante sana.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming. Our special appreciation to you for that wonderful lesson.
Thank you.
And we are going to start developing culture.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, I feared something when you said, you know, an organization can exist 30, 40 years without culture.
We will stop.
Hey, that is a mountain.
Yes.
God bless you.
Amen.
We also thank God for the gift of life and for the ability and for the grace to be here that we are right now. Tunashukuru. May all the glory and all the honor go back to his holy name. I want to thank Bishop Dr. Thomas Mothe and Reverend Phyllis Mothe for the platform, for the opportunity, for the love, for the support, for the care. Tunashukuru sana, asante, tunasema ni asante. I want also to thank the people producing the Child on Break show. We have Elvis Sifuna, Doreen Mwende, and Peter Mora. God richly bless you, together with the entire PrayerCave TV staff. Your labors in the Lord are not in vain. And to you, our viewer, we love you, we appreciate you, and we pray for you every day.